This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman, and you're listening to the DCAU Review, hosted by Cal and Liam, streaming at DCAUreview.com and on your favorite podcast app.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 348 of the DCAU Review. A DCAU Review episode that will live in infamy, no doubt. Liam is with me. I'm one of your hosts, Cal. With me, Liam, our other host. Liam, this is a episode that we're tackling today that I believe was written in the annals of time when it came to the DCAU Review. We referenced this episode quite frequently. It's one of the few I feel like that we had left that just had this legendary status for all the wrong reasons that was still left on the plate. And today is the day where we finally tackle this legendary episode. We talk about the stories of its past and how it came to be, all of that in between there with a legendary Static Shock episode, crossover episode today.
That is right. We are talking about none other than the season 4 episode Hoop Squad, featuring the DCAU debuts of the NBA's 2004 All-Star team, I guess.
Oh my.
Boy, we have...
What an idea.
Yeah. Let's not get ahead of ourselves yet, but yeah. Just listen, no matter how many home runs you hit, sometimes you just need to take a few shots off the tee, and I think that's what we're going to be doing here today to mix our sports metaphors, because... Well, let's just get to it. Yes, Yao Ming, Karl Malone, Tracy McGrady, and Steve Nash team up with Static Shock to fight a magic robot. So, Hoop Squad, here we go.
That's right. I don't even know. Can we just give our scores now and be done with it? What do you think? Because that was it's pretty much the synopsis right there. No. Of course, we will get an official IMDb synopsis for this week's episode in just a moment here. For this episode, that according to the DCAU Wiki, originally aired here in the United States back on February the 28th, 2004. And Liam, before we get the plot synopsis, just a little bit of background about what we know about this episode and how it actually did come together. So the late, great Dwayne McDuffie did an interview with our friends over at World's Finest online, DCAnimated.com, and specifically was asked, Mr. McDuffie was asked about some of the crossover and sort of celebrity appearances and how those kind of came into fruition for Static, and he spoke kind of very highly about Shaq and Lil Romeo, and felt like that their appearances, albeit were of the celebrity nature and sort of maybe in our opinion departs from the typical DCAU style. What he said he enjoyed about those appearances is that the episodes themselves actually told a story, and the featuring of a celebrity appearance was more or less just some icing on the cake. Like the stories themselves didn't necessarily suffer when it came to the actual storytelling. However, when it came to Hoop Squad, he had an interesting metaphor for what he referred to this episode as, and that being a head-on collision, not just a train wreck, but a head-on collision of two trains full of stink bombs. Heck of an endorsement there from the late great Mr. McDuffie. Yeah, so it sounds like this was done ironically as like a favor to the studio. I'm guessing to Kids WB.
Yeah, the Warner Brothers as a whole. I was trying to do the math of like when WB would have gotten controlling interest in TNT, and when the NBA was going on TNT, if this was just like a larger like brand awareness for the NBA coming to like the Warner networks or something. Because the CW or the WB never aired NBA to my memory, but maybe some of the satellite cable networks Warner owned were introducing this. I couldn't find anything that specifically stated that there was like a plan for the Hoop Squad itself to be like a cartoon or something, but who knows? Maybe that was a pipe dream somewhere too. But it felt like we were like, This is really just about introducing the Static Shock audience to the concept of NBA and hey, these guys are cool and kind of like superheroes. When you think about it, NBA players are kind of like superheroes too, aren't they?
I think that's literal verbatim dialogue from the final scene too here. So, yeah, it's interesting. We attempted to request a guest to come on to talk about this episode, and they, as you mentioned last week, they actually declined because they said that they just didn't feel like they had anything good to say about the episode. So that tells you something right there when it comes to this notorious Hoop Squad episode. Yeah, you wonder if this was maybe Warner Brothers or their subsidiaries were courting like an NBA style or an NBA rights deal package at that time, and this was their way of like sweetening the pot. Look, we can feature your all-stars on our kids programming and make their, even more famous to children and make your stars even bigger and spread the love to the NBA as a whole. So yeah, I hard to say what it is. We have some very interesting choices, as we'll get into here, but we will get the official IMDb synopsis for this before we break down the episode on our own in just a moment. But before we do, I'd like to remind you, if you'd like to support the podcast, the easiest way to do so is to head over to buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review. That's buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review. As I say each week, though, it's more like buy us a coffee, because you're supporting Liam and myself as we work on this podcast. If you're a fan of the pod, you have multiple levels that you can support the podcast. Head over to buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review and check them out. We have monthly options. You have one-time options if you simply want to buy us a caffeinated beverage or become a monthly supporter. We have 3 different tier levels, all that come with plenty of perks, including our top tier level, which comes with the very fun perk. It's fun for us. Seems to be fun for those that are subscribed to that perk as well, to throw a question our way about the episode that we'll be reviewing the following week. And we will have our question of the week in just a little bit once we wrap things up here today. So make sure you stick around and check that out. But if you want to join our supporters and get your own questions in, or maybe select one of those other levels to support the podcast, head over to buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review and support the podcast today.
Absolutely. So this is the synopsis for Hoop Squad, written by Len Yulee and David Garber, but don't hold that against those men. Directed by Victor Dalchelle. Apologies if I'm butchering that. Music by Max Gauss and Derek Thornton, and animation by Dong Wu. And that synopsis reads as such. Mr. Hawkins takes Virgil and Richie to the All-Star basketball game in Los Angeles, where Static and Gear team up with an all-star team of heroes.
I see what they did there. All-star team of heroes. Not bad. IMDb synopsis, probably the highest thing I would give a grade to today, ultimately, but we will see once we get to the end here. Liam, our own plot synopsis kicks off with this. So the aforementioned Virgil and Richie are in a nice limousine driving down through downtown Los Angeles, accompanied by the aforementioned Mr. Hawkins. They mentioned that the reason that they won this trip or something is I don't know if they won it or if it was given to them by the NBA, but Virgil's father raised a bunch of money for charity and got this as a very lovely gift for his hard work.
A private jet to LA, a limo to pick us up, VIP seats for the All-Star game? Oh, V, this is the bomb! Hey, thank my pops. He's the one who helped raise all that money for the charity fund.
Virgil, I'm gonna let you two go straight to the arena while I get us checked into the hotel.
Whoa, look! Man, nothing in this town is real.
We see Virgil and Richie just appreciating the sights of the big city of Los Angeles. But as they pass certain items, including a gigantic what I guess is rubberized T-Rex. We see that its exoskeleton gets eaten away, leaving nothing but metal behind. And then we see them pass a costume shop that has a bunch of masks in the storefront. Those also suddenly get eaten away and disappear. And then as they continue driving down the street, remarking about all of the incredible sights that they're seeing, we see the wheels on a bus also begin to disappear, and the bus begins to careen out of control. But that's the last we see of that bus, I guess. No nuns or dynamite included, I guess, in this bus crash. But we get to the I don't know, is this the Staples Center or whatever they call it's not the Staples Center anymore, the Crypto.com arena, or
I guess so. That's where the Lakers and the Clippers play.
Yeah, so they show up to the arena in downtown Los Angeles where the All-Star game, the NBA All-Star game, will be hosted at a later date, which, by the way, if you're a listener and you're not a fan of the NBA, notoriously, the NBA All-Star game is the least competitive game. It's an exhibition game. So you're not putting, and these are guys that are making millions of dollars. So generally speaking, not a lot of effort is put into these games, or it's not taken very seriously. But in the DCAU, in this world, it is dire. So much, in fact, that we have, as Virgil and Richie walk into the arena, just all willy-nilly, unaccompanied by themselves. They walk down to the court and see the entire starting five of one of the teams. The other thing that doesn't make any sense is that these players play for teams that are in opposing conferences, so they wouldn't be on the same All-Star team unless they did like a fantasy draft or something like that. But that's the least amount of problems with this episode, but
maybe
they're all practicing.
The DCAU, Orlando is on the West Coast.
Apparently. Now, granted, that doesn't always line up with conferences and sports. It doesn't. Geography doesn't always line up, even though it should, with the names of the conferences. But you can't get any further east, I feel like, than Orlando, Florida. So them being in the Western Conference would make no sense. But anyway, the aforementioned practice is happening in full gear, by the way. These guys are in their full uniforms, just in case there was any confusion about who they were. And that is the aforementioned Tracy McGrady, Karl Malone, who we have probably a long conversation. Just look up his Wikipedia page if you want to read some unfortunate things about Karl Malone.
Bad bloke.
Is it?
It is not disputed that he fathered a child with a girl who, when she gave birth, was 13. And at that point, he was 20 years old.
Okay. All right. So you can read up all about Karl Malone's life. I'm sure plenty of access on the internet. Needless to say, don't think he would be featured in any cartoons nowadays. In this day and age, I would think.
Hope not.
Well, also joining the mailman, which was his nickname, Karl Malone, we have Yao Ming and Steve Nash, rounding out our big four here. And they are they're, as we said, practicing. They notice that Richie and Virgil are standing off to the side, and they introduce themselves, of course, like you would, to two random kids that are there watching them. And they are so impressed with Virgil and Richie and deciding to make them have a memorable moment. They present them with the basketball that they were practicing with.
I'm just tired of dragging your sorry butt up and down this court.
How about McGrady? He's on call, no shoot.
Hey, what are you flapping on about? I made my last 6 shots, yo-yo.
That's yo-yo.
Here's your ball back.
Thanks. And who are you guys?
Virgil Hawkins.
Richie Foley.
Pleased to meet you. I'm
The mailman, Karl Malone. And you're Tracy McGrady. Yao Ming and Steve Nash.
We are huge fans.
Super mega huge.
Well, can't have our super mega huge fans visit and go home empty-handed.
How'd you guys like an official all-star basketball?
Us? No. Definitely. Yes! Would you guys please sign it?
Hey, what's the deal?
You broke the ball.
Hey, I saved for 2 months to buy these kicks. Everything's disintegrating.
And as they go to sign the basketball, it just disappears. Sort of how we saw the other items disappearing before. And then not only does the basketball disappear, Richie's expensive sneakers then disappear. And then Static's watch disappears. And they put 2 and 2 together that all of these things are made of rubber or something. So that's why they're falling apart. And as Richie and Static begin to put their heads together to try and figure out what's going on, they turn around and, well, our basketball team has disappeared. And while initially thinking that maybe they too had been disintegrated by whatever this mystical force is, they snap out of it pretty quickly and decide they're going to go figure out what's going on their own. So as they get out there, we see that Backpack is as Static and Richie have fully suited up at this point to go explore outside. We see the traffic jam has created all over the city. None of the cars have tires anymore, and we see that this has created chaos. Backpack has a signal for something going off that they identify as Liam. The return of one of our favorite gimmicks in all of comic books, specifically the DCAU. It's time for Static to deal with nanites.
Yes, they're back, and they're basically magic, as always.
That's right. They can do anything that anything that they need to in order to create chaos. And as the nanites are giving off the signal, thankfully, Backpack tracks them to the source of what's going on. As they're en route, we cut to a train that is barreling down and sees a object on the tracks, and it attempts to stop, but it is unable to, as we see it slam into this giant robot. And the robot snatches up parts that are attached to the train and begins doing something magic to them. And that's just when Gear and Static arrive. And Gear is able to quickly diagnose that the robot itself is made completely out of nanites. So this is millions and millions and millions of tiny robots all put together, making one giant robot, like a beehive, except without the honey, as they dialogue.
Don't tell me.
Yep. Backpack sensors show that it's made entirely of nanites.
I told you not to tell me.
That thing's billions of little robots all squished into one. Kind of like a gigantic beehive without the hive.
Let's put this mountain of nanites on the right track.
We're getting to it.
Or maybe not.
So the gigantic robot made out of mini robots begins wreaking havoc, smashing things, and unfortunately, Static and Gear are quickly overwhelmed, and they are able to seemingly damage the robot, but we see it does the Wolverine thing where it heals itself immediately, and the robots are working. We've seen this in other series. We know how this works. It's essentially, this is a giant Amazo at this point. It's just able to heal himself with any sort of damage that happens here. But as it seems that Static and Gear are overwhelmed, Gear is captured by the robot in one of his hands, and Static is off to the side. They notice that another group of men in mechanical suits begin flying towards them, and Static remarks that it must just be one of those days. And as the suits begin flying in, they fly right past Static, despite him requesting that they halt and identify themselves. And as they show up, they themselves begin fighting the robots. These men in mechanical suits that they look like the Power Rangers, okay? They're Power Rangers, and they all have colors that are associated with whatever team that they're on. We have a purple and yellow one for the Lakers. We have one that's blue and white for the Magic. We have one that's blue and white for the Mavericks. And we have one that's red and white for the Rockets. So we have color coordination here. This team begins to, with their shielded masks, begin to do their best to try and take down the gigantic robot. But as we see here, they are unfortunately unable to completely stop the robot. We see them put their power source on display, or their powers on display. We see the one red robot gets like stretchy powers, and then we have one of the blue robots spins around real fast and does the tornado thing, the Tasmanian devil, the Flash thing. We have the other robot shoots like little darts out of his wrists, and then the purple and yellow one, his hands get gigantic, just huge hands, and he's able to pick things up with them, I guess. I don't know, but we see that the robot continues to try and steal these compressors that are attached to the train, and unfortunately Gear is captured. Static is brought to the ground, and then the robot is able to escape in his own tornado, taking Gear with him. And at this point, our men in armor check on Static, who demands that they reveal who their identities are. And let's just say it's the most predictable outcome for who our 4 men in armor are here saving the day.
Where's Gear?
In that tornado.
And I don't think he's on his way to Oz. But don't sweat it, Static. We'll find him.
Just who are you guys anyway?
Carl Malone, codename Pulverizer.
Point man.
Center force.
Spin drive.
We're the Hoop Squad.
Yeah, we get the reveal here. It's Carl Malone as the Pulverizer. He's the one with big hands. Awful person. Steve Nash is the man with 1-inch spikes coming out of his fingers. That's Steve. That's Point Man.
Mm-hmm.
Yao Ming is Center Force, the stretchy guy. We didn't need 2 stretchy guys. We certainly don't need 3. And Tracy McGrady is the spinning Tasmanian devil guy. Spin drive.
Mm-hmm.
So as they're discussing this, as Gear is taken away, kidnapped by the nanite robot and disappears, Hoop Squad takes Static to their secret headquarters, which I guess is also in LA, where they meet a doctor named Mason Andrews and his robot assistant named Lagata.
Mm-hmm.
And we get some techno jargon babble about.
Let's not forget what organization he works for. That's very important.
Pretty small crib. Wow! Look at all these cool toys.
These cool toys, as you call them, are necessary in order to overcome
the dangers similar to the one you faced earlier.
Static, this is Mason Andrews. He's the main contact between the Hoop Squad and the NBA.
You're a sports agent?
I'm with the National Biotech Authority.
Okay, that's a new one to me.
It's a secret organization dedicated to preserving
world peace and stability.
He says the NBA, which causes Static to ask him if it's if he's a sports agent, but he actually explains that he works for the National Biotech Authority, which is a company that has authorized the creation of these super suits that the NBA players are wearing, with the explanation being, according to Carl Malone, terrible person, that who else has the right combination of speed, strength, and athleticism to wear these biotech super suits.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be NBA players, famous NBA players.
Well, it enhances their already, superhuman like abilities, athletic abilities.
Right. You know how Steve Nash can shoot his fingernails off already?
This just helps him with accuracy.
Yeah, obviously. It just gives him some direction. But yes, the National Biotech Authority and Mason Andrews tell us that this is all apparently this robot, all of the nanites, the disappearing rubber, is the work of a mysterious scientist named Dr. Odium, who is where they have a video on a screen. This is so like Power Rangers Super Friends. Like they already have a video from the supervillain saying his plan. He wants $100 million within 2 hours, or else he's going to release millions of nanites into the fault line in LA and cause a giant earthquake which will destroy the entire West Coast. So I think it's fair to say that the stakes have never been higher. We cut from there to Dr. Odium's laboratory, and he's just talking to Gear about how he kidnapped Gear because he thought he and Gear might be like kindred spirits. Because Gear is smart. And the robot at one point scans Gear during the first fight, and it's like threat level high. So I guess he can, by scanning him, the nanites could tell that Gear was smart, I guess.
Sure.
So we see that as Gear is kind of trying to be defiant and telling Dr. Odium, but they're nothing alike. In struggling to get free, he drops his shock vox. And so Dr. Odium uses that to lure Static and the Hoop Squad into a trap. So they get a fake message from Richie. I guess the nanites can mimic voices too. And they get sent to, I guess this is the LA River. They don't really state where this is, except it's not an actual river.
It's like one of those things that you see. Listen, I've never been to LA before, but it's like one of those things that you see in like the San Andreas games where it's like above ground sewer water running through with like it's where people go and like, you know, you do BMX things and skateboard and all that stuff.
Yeah, there's definitely a Tony Hawk map on one of these. But anyway, so they head there and they head into a sewer tunnel because one of the Hoop Squad picks up a signal on their scanners. So they go, and as they enter the tunnel, they realize it's a trap, as Admiral Akbar would say. And a bunch of nanites come chasing after them. Static's electricity powers are useless because as not Tracy, Karl Malone, terrible person, tells Static, they can change their molecular structure to no longer be affected by electricity or magnetism.
Hold it! This is Gear's shock box.
Then where's Gear?
I think I smell a trap.
I think they smell food.
So what are they made out of there? Did they create a new element? Like they're still little metal things, right? They're still little robots.
Unclear.
A power source?
Unclear.
I don't know. Okay, whatever. I don't know why I'm trying to
trying to logic this a little bit too much, I think.
That's right. But since Static is useless, the Hoop Squad teams up as Stretch Man and Spin Boy team up to drill a hole directly up. They're far underground in the sewers and they're trapped, so they drill straight up using their amazing powers, and they're able to escape. And they're kind of down in the dumps, but Static is especially frustrated because they still haven't found Gear and they're running out of time. And Karl Malone, terrible person, tells Static that that's okay because being a superhero is just like the NBA. It's teamwork. Even though Static hasn't been very much help throughout this adventure, they're all going to work together and figure something out.
You okay?
Yeah, but I wasn't much help.
This is team play, Static. We all do what we can. It's that way playing basketball or saving the world.
I hate to break up this little party, but we still have to find Gear.
And try to keep Odium from starting an earthquake.
Hey, I just did a legato.
Men, Legata's picked up increased abnormal transformations of base compounds on a molecular level
over the abandoned oil fields in North Los Angeles.
That's nanite activity.
You are very smart for a short person.
Those oil fields were abandoned because they were too close to the earthquake fault system. Finally, no interrupt.
That's it! You know the giant compressor the robot was stealing? What if Odium needs it to pump his nanites down through the well shafts? That kind of activity could trigger huge earthquakes.
All that will be left of LA and the West Coast is a great big...
Nothing.
Yes, the amazing NBA doctor calls and says, go to this set piece for the final battle. And so they arrive there and they see Dr. Odium out there, and he has a big giant device that he's going to pump the nanites into the ground. And as Static and the Hoop Squad arrive, they find out, here's the big twist of the episode. Are you ready? I hope you're sitting down. Dr. Odium is a robot.
What?
That's right. He turns into the big robot from earlier, and they do some punching, and it looks like, and he starts to pump the nanites into the ground. But then we use the power of teamwork. The Hoop Squad contains the robot while Static disables the device. And then in a portion of the episode that really honestly made me furious, we get the reveal that actually, well, he pumped all his brains. They turn off the device, which disables all of the nanites. And then we just radio, and Gear is fine. He just got himself free.
It's fine. Yep.
Gear? Is it really you this time? Live and in person. I finally managed to get free with a little help from Backpack. And sorry I wasn't there for the fireworks, bro, but I watched it all on Odium's surveillance system. Any idea where Dr. Odium is?
The real one, I mean?
Right in front of me. Now that his nanite version's gone bluey, I'll give him an early wake-up call.
Keep him on ice till we get there. And tell him the Hoop Squad says his career has been rejected.
He's doing well over there, you know. It wasn't all that bad. He was uncomfortable a little bit. The nanites were like muffling his speech for a little bit, but for the most part, it was a comfortable nice little rest. He got to hang out in a weird laboratory in LA, and everything's fine. And they found the real Dr. Odium, who for some time it sounds like they were calling him Dr. Podium. So I was confused when I read the wiki and saw it was Odium. Anyway, the real Dr. Odium is alive, and he just plugged himself into this machine and knocked himself unconscious. So guess what? There's no actual fighting that has to be done. And as they take Dr. Odium out of the machine, they suggest they put him back in because he's reasons. So they learn the power of teamwork, ? Now that everything is taken care of. I don't know. We cut back to Virgil and Richie, who, by the way, there's a scene in the middle of this where, if you recall, Virgil and Richie were here with Virgil's dad for the All-Star weekend. And Virgil gets a phone call halfway through from his dad, and like, hey, where are you guys? And he's like, in the hangout with the Hoop Squad. And he's like, and Karl Malone takes his phone and is like, hey, Mr. Hawkins, it's me, Karl Malone. I'm with your son.
Yo, McGrady. Wait. It's mine. Hello?
Virgil?
Pops. Hi. Where are you?
I'm at the hotel. Where are you?
Where am I? Well, see,
Hey, Mr. Hawkins, Karl Malone here.
Karl Malone? The Karl Malone?
Uh-huh. Listen, Virgil's hanging out with me and a couple of players. Is that okay with you?
My Virgil? Hanging with the mailman? Well, sure, it's okay. It's great. It's better than great. It's spectacular.
Cool. We'll have him and Richie back at the hotel as soon as we can.
I just want to say that I've always admired your moves on the...
That's great, Mr. Hawkins. See you.
Thanks. It's not easy having to make stuff up all the time.
You know, 14 to 17-year-old boy hanging out with grown-ass men. You cool with that? And Virgil's dad's like, yeah, I trust anybody. If I don't trust anybody, I trust Karl Malone, and that's it, because he's the best. Robert Hawkins. So, we're at the end here. We're finally, Static and Gear are no longer needed. So Virgil and Richie join Virgil's dad at the All-Star game, sitting there. And you see the funny part here is that Virgil and Richie start calling Karl Malone and Yao Ming and Steve Nash and Tracy McGrady by their superhero names, their Hoop Squad names. And Mr. Hawkins looks over and says, "What? What are you calling them? That's not their names. Why are you calling them that?" So Virgil has to really quickly come up with the reason why. And he says, "Oh, it's because we've made up some nicknames for them, kind of like superheroes." And he's like, "Kids, come on. They're just athletes. They're not real superheroes." And they're like, "Uh-huh, Dad." And that's the end of the episode. Thank God. So we talked about at the beginning here. It's hard to fault the actual. I hold no fault against the writers of the episode. Obviously, we've had Mr. Len Yuli on the program before. Just the nicest, sweetest man, and David Garber, I assume, had written some other. Nope, this is the only episode that David Garber. Maybe we can hold it against him. Mr. Garber was brought in to co-write for this episode, so hard to hold this against the writers, because it very much sounds like, from what the late great Dwayne McDuffie said, as we mentioned, this was a sort of a mandate / make good with the studio for, like, hey, they approached us with us and they've been kind to us and we don't really want to make them angry. I imagine it would be difficult to say no to a studio that's approaching you, that really controls the future of your projects and anything else that you want to do with something. If you tell them no, might have some negative consequences. So saying no, while it seems like an option in that moment, probably isn't really an option, if I had to guess. So I don't hold this against the writers. I don't hold this against the director. I don't hold this even against the series. But this is this is going to be one of the worst episodes in the history of the DCAU. It is awful. It is an awful concept to involve real life people. First of all, we'll get into it as we get into our next categories. But Karl Malone, terrible person, is the only person actually voicing his character in the show. So you could have really just done a Karl Malone episode if you really wanted to, and done that. Would have been horrible in retrospect, but he's kind of the main focus of he's kind of the leader of the Hoop Squad anyway. So not that much of a difference. But you have Karl Malone, and the story is, as you said, like copy and paste from any children's cartoon from 1965 all the way up through, I guess, 2004. It is it's just bad. It's bad. There's no lesson. Our hero gets shoved to the back for 99% of the episode, and we don't even get, like, it doesn't even feel like he gets the redemption at the end. We have this like little thing that's shoehorned in there where he's like, "Oh, I feel like it's my fault because the stuff at the train got stolen," even though he was there and Gear was there and the Hoop Squad was there trying to stop this robot from stealing the compressor that ultimately is going to feed the robots into the earth or whatever. But he tries to take the blame, and they're like, "No, it's a team sport. Everybody's at fault for this," which is like, yeah, kind of, that's true. But like, it really doesn't feel like he learns anything at the end. As you mentioned, Gear is just like a prop that's used as like one of the other main heroes.
It felt like they just wrote him out because they didn't know what to do with them in the episode.
Right.
Which, if that's the case, why not have it just be Virgil and his dad come to LA? Like, just don't have Richie there. Like,
yeah. Very odd choices there. Like I said, it feels like our heroes are saddled. I thought, and it's interesting, I messaged you as I was watching this and was like, was this a backdoor pilot for a Hoop Squad show? Because that's the only reason I could understand why, and we have no evidence to suggest that, as we mentioned. The only thing that makes sense is they were like, let's showcase 4 NBA players in this ridiculous idea, and maybe, enough people will watch it or be interested in it, or it'll catch enough buzz where we will pick up a full-length series and, make these players who use their likeness and get them a couple extra $1 million or something like that. Because they are the almost main focus of this weird Scooby-Doo Super Friends plot of this guy. And then we have the weird twist that doesn't even need to be a twist. Oh, he's actually made up of nanites. Great. What does that do for us? And then revealed at the end, oh, he actually is a real person. He just plugged himself into his machine. Does that make him extra evil? He's already defeated at that point. Like, what does it matter that he plugged himself into a machine to be the nanites? Maybe if it had been revealed that the nanites had overtaken him and forced him into the machine, you're like, oh, okay, well, he's not actually evil. He's just, his creation got the better of him and took over. It's it's Dr. Frankenstein or whatever. But no, he's just evil and put himself in a machine. And he's even more evil at the end because the nanites made a version of him. I don't even know. Like, there just seems to be no direction here.
Yeah, like we said, we couldn't find anything specifically stating that this was a backdoor pilot. Like I said, I don't know if this was just introduce children to the NBA as a concept. I don't know. It feels very misguided. And to Mr. McDuffie's point, as you said, there really isn't even like something for Virgil to learn. Oh, he learns that it's teamwork is important. Great. He works with another superhero every week on the show, named Gear, who you sidelined for this episode so the Hoop Squad could be here. Anyway, it's bad. I can't add too much to what he said. It's just, yes, it's such a hackneyed concept. It's such a silly villain. He's gonna make a big earthquake machine unless he gets $100 million. And the end result is just not very interesting on top of it. And it's not it's just dry too. I think that's almost the worst part of it. Like last week we were kind of picking on the plot a little bit, but we had a lot of fun. It was kind of a funny, quirky episode, and this one's just it's dry. It's just not very interesting on top of that. It's like, okay, what if 4 NBA guys were the Power Rangers? Turns out it's not that interesting.
And you know what? Out of curiosity, I looked it up. So this episode originally debuted February 28th, 2004, which means this episode was probably put into production in 2003. The NBA rights package moved to TNT, which was not, I don't know if it was a part of Warner Brothers yet in 2003. But the NBA rights package was at least shifting around that time. Mm-hmm. So it definitely feels like there was some studio hey, we're going to feature this as a make good or as part of the look at what we can do for all of your players. Yeah. We can make your brand synergy to promote your league and your players together here. Especially because they use the actual team names. It wasn't just the players that showed up. It's the actual NBA logos, the actual NBA team jerseys, and uniforms and all that stuff, which means that the actual NBA was involved with it. It wasn't just hey, let's get these guys in here. So yeah, I think we can kind of see some of that behind the scenes here as potentially that why this was a thing, but it just does not. It's just not good. It's just not.
It almost makes it worse.
Right.
Because then it's just naked, brand commerce synergy and blech.
Right.
Which adds another layer of yuckiness to it beyond like I said, just kind of a boring, silly, one-dimensional, paper-thin plot on top of it. So. For all those reasons, I gave plot a 0 out of 10 this week.
Have to check the archives to see if this is a first, but we're in agreement. I gave it also a 0 out of 10. Yeah, it's bad. It's just a bad piece of a show that deserved better. And I think the unforgivable sin here is the fact that this was an idea at all, your brand synergy and your promoting of, corporate whatever in order to highlight or sweeten the deal or to get money or to get a discount on things or whatever the deal is. Whatever was happening behind the scenes that made this happen. It is unforgivable that you take the star of your show and you make him play second fiddle to 4 grown-ass NBA players as the heroes, that end up the heroes and the main focus of the majority of the show. And then the end of the episode is there's no lesson learned. Your hero is nowhere, didn't grow from it at all. There was no, other than like Static got a cool moment where he was hanging out with some athletes. Like, great. What did this do for our hero? Nothing except essentially cut him off at his knees and be like, yep, there you go. You're not as cool as the Hoop Squad. You needed the Hoop Squad to beat this gigantic robot thing. So, yeah, not surprising that we did not love the plot. And maybe from one of the few times in DCAU history, a score of 0 for our plots. We'll get back to that at some point, I'm sure. But for now, let's move on to our next category, Liam, which is going to be animation and visuals. And animation visuals this week done by Dong Wu. I talked about it at the top. These guys are just Power Rangers with little belts that have basketballs on them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of lame. Like you could have done anything for these, and I understand you wanted to create some sort of uniformity. They're Iron Man mixed with Power Rangers, and you just threw some color on their chest plates to indicate what team they played for.
Yeah. Also, I guess it's just these are the 4. Maybe this was a mandate of what 4 athletes they wanted to push at the time from one of the corporate entities involved. But 2 of your guys are blue and white.
Yeah.
You couldn't have gotten somebody from the Celtics or something. So at least you had a different primary color there to show off.
Yep. That was unfortunate and an unfortunate choice. I mean, the choice to give them superpowers also, I understand it's bio enhancing suits, but making Yao Ming, like Yao Ming's kind of makes sense. He was a big 7 foot plus tall center, right? Like that was his position. So, all right, he gets to stretch and be really tall. Okay. Karl Malone, terrible person. He was known, by the way, also, this is like the final or the next one of the final few years that Karl Malone played basketball. So that one's a real head scratcher to me. Like Kobe, right. This is prime Kobe Bryant era. This is prime, like you could have gotten Shaq back here to do something. Like I feel like there was probably 50 other guys that would have fit this era a little bit better rather than going with Karl Malone. But he played for the Lakers.
If I'm not mistaken, it's his last team. It's like he's there for like half a season at the end of his career. Like,
which, yeah, I was gonna say the Lakers aren't even the team that he was most known for either. So that's what makes it even. They're like, hey, let's get one of the Lakers in here. Maybe he was the only one that was available or willing to do it. I don't know, but either way, very odd choice. Karl Malone's thing, he was a power forward, so they were like known for rebounding the ball. So I guess big hands is his thing. I don't know. none of these things match up with their names really either. Oh, we didn't even talk about that in the plot. I don't know where you would insert that, but these are some of the worst superhero names. Pulverizer, terrible. Point Man. He's a point guard, I guess, but he also shoots these little pointy spikes. Is that why he's Point Man?
Yeah, I guess so.
Then we have Center Force, which we already said Yao Ming is a center. So Center Force, and then Spin Drive. I'm not gonna front. I'm not like the most knowledgeable Tracy McGrady fan, but was he known for his spinning? We think like that's not like you kind of occasionally see somebody do like a spin in the lane if they're going for a dunk or something, but like I don't think spinning, the act of spinning when I think Tracy McGrady. I'm just gonna throw that one out there. So yeah, their powers don't make a whole lot of sense. I'm guessing that it was just like, hey, let's what do we know about these guys? Sure, we'll give them that. Spinning the ball is something that people can do with a basketball. Sure, that works. I think the most interesting thing is the robot, the nanite man. I do like the giant robot design. It's actually in the season 4 opening credits, I believe.
Yeah.
So we finally get to see that. It's a cool design. The way he moves and kind of responds to the different interactions when he's attacking the train and Static come after him, as we said, like the regrowth of when the damage hits him, or kind of like the way he turns his head, or he like. There's this one point where they slice into his shoulder and he like misses a piece and then it grows together, and he actually picks up his arm once it grows back together and he like does a little flex to once the arm is grown back together. I kind of dug that. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, I don't know why a thing made of robots would flex its arm, but sure. Yeah, that's cool. It looks cool. So we get to see that battle Static and Gear at the beginning there, and then at the end just Static and the Hoop Squad. But the rest of it is just kind of a lot of standing around and talking and watching our heroes in their suits with their masks off. And I don't know where the robot assistant to the NBA guy comes in and why that was a thing, other than more Power Ranger ripoff. Like, I don't know. That's why I feel like this was a backdoor pilot. Like, why would you introduce side characters and this weird robot sidekick that interrupts the guy over and over again?
Yeah, either it's a backdoor pilot or they were just like, this is so tropey already. Right. So let's just throw in everything. We'll show in a wacky robot sidekick and a scientist who's there to like explain all of the mumbo jumbo scientific explanation for whatever's happening on any given episode. Like Static somehow got transported into their cartoon for an episode or something. Like, so yeah, either because they wanted to make this a series, or just because they were like, maybe the writers were just like, let's just throw in all of the like I said, just all the tropes of like a sci-fi kids show of a certain era.
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to say here. I don't think the episode looks bad. It's actually the thing I gave the highest score to today, but it's unfortunate that you kind of have a blank slate here to create what the Hoop Squad looks like. And okay, you're going to give them these suits of armor. Okay. But again, it just feels like you didn't do enough to differentiate it from other popular properties at that time, or that were shortly before this time. I don't know when Power Rangers went out of style, but I'm guessing it was still in public consciousness around this time, 2004. Hard to say that they did a unique enough job where I was like, yeah, that looks great. And then it's just a lot of wacky zaniness for the rest of the episode. I guess our professor and our bad guy looks like a bad guy. Great job. He looks like, throw a dart at a random board that has a bunch of different cartoons on it, and sure, he could be a bad guy in any of those things. But I don't have a lot as far as my animation and visuals are concerned here, and That's why I gave animation visuals a 4 out of 10. It's disappointing if you're gonna go this wacky and this zany. The robot looks cool, but I also don't like the way that they heavily rely on like I guess it's CGI or whatever it is that like when the robots are eating away at things, like that melting effect. I don't like that. And I don't they use that heavily in that scene where they're trying to like burrow out of the sewers, and feels like it's permanently like in the same space for a little while. There's like suspended animation. It's just not encroaching at all. They just keep cutting to it and it's in the same exact spot despite not being held back by anything. So yeah, I don't like the heavy reliance on that. The robot itself, cool. The power set, even though I don't quite understand all of it, fine, looks cool. But that's about all I have here as far as interesting or good animation. What about you?
Yep, I have the robots. The robot design's kind of neat, and what's the robot? La Gata?
El Gata or La Gata? Yeah.
Yes. I think that's kind of I don't know, she kind of looks like the robot from the Jetsons to me, like
Rosie.
But red and black, yeah, Rosie. So I was like, I don't know, that's kind of again, fits the tempo of what I think they were trying to go for, which is just make this like the most like schlocky, silly sci-fi kids show of all time. So yeah, I think that the robot designs get a slight thumbs up. Not much else does, because I thought the visualization of their powers aren't very interesting either. So it's just like, I don't know. And also, let's be honest, I'm just in a bad mood because I didn't like the episode. But for all those reasons, I settled on a pretty low 4 out of 10 for my visual score.
All right, so we're 2 for 2. I also gave it a 4 out of 10. So, yeah, we are in sync thus far here. Not we've talked about this. It's a good time to remind you. Sometimes when you watch an episode and it pisses you off, it's gonna out in the scores. Like it's just unavoidable. Like you don't like the movie, you're gonna give it a bad rating. It happens. We try and break it down into these categories and not let it affect an individual thing. But as we said, if you're so low in one of the categories, there's almost, I feel like, an expectation for us that you got to pick up the slack in one of these other categories.
Yes.
And it didn't happen, especially like it was a struggle. It didn't meet that, didn't go above and beyond to pick up in one of those other categories thus far. All right, Liam, let's move on to our next category, which is music. And we have I don't have a lot of musical notes other than the one song that plays when they're walking in and watching the NBA stars practice is absolutely a Jay-Z ripoff song. Like it is the guy could not have been mimicking Jay-Z any harder if he tried. The thing that really you don't get the full bars because there's dialogue over top of them, but there's a line that says, "Get your own ish done." That is the only line that you can hear the full thing pretty much of where there's not dialogue over top of it. And my thought was, I'm not a prude. I'm not against using language. However, this is a children's cartoon, and you just had a line that said, "Get your own ish done," and it's the only line that was completely audible. What are we doing here? What are we doing? I understand they didn't say the actual word, but
right.
It's if you know, you know. So what are we doing here? Like we're just sliding that in again. We're in season 4 here, and we've already talked about this month about the give no F's of like, well, if we get copyright strike by 20th Century Fox over this Star Wars sound alike, so be it. Like it's like, all right, well, if we just let a curse word substitute here slip in, what's the big deal? Not a big deal. Could it be worse? Sure, absolutely. But again, I'm in a bad mood, and that slips through here, and it's the only audible verse that I picked up, and I'm like, I rewound it twice. I'm like, did I hear that wrong? Nope. Definitely heard it. Like, interesting. Okay. The rest of the episode could have probably dealt with some more of that classic static music. I would have welcomed more, maybe some hard DMX mimicking when we're getting the fight scene between the Hoop Squad and the gigantic robot, or give me some soulful like crooning at the end when they're watching the Hoop Squad in their civilian uniforms win the All-Star game. They were playing so hard at the end. It was necessary that they win 96-94. Also, if you're not a fan of the NBA, those games are notoriously offensive heavy where the games end up being like 150-140, but this one didn't even crack 100 points and it was so competitive. All right, that's all. I don't have a lot as far as music is concerned. 3 out of 10 for music. Needed better music. It needed more. And I don't like that you snuck in a little like sneaky curse word substitute there and hope that nobody would notice. So 3 out of 10.
Hey, there you go. Yeah, I went 2 out of 10. I just hated it. Like it. And again, it's not really the music's fault because the music is just uninteresting, and normally that would get you a 5 or a 4, but again, you're looking for anything to pick up the slack, so I started paying more attention to the music, and I'm just like, it's giving me nothing. And I really needed something. I was looking for anything and just couldn't find anything. So yeah, again, sometimes the other you have to be the sacrificial lamb, unfortunately. Apologies to Mr. Gauss and Mr. Thornton, but this is it was your turn.
Right. All right, Liam, let's move on to our final category of the day. I feel like we're breezing right through here, and that is our voice actors and actresses. And spoiler alert, we talked about it. Only one of our Hoop Squad is actually played by the actual Hoop Squad member, and despite glowing reviews of his performance and his kindness in the studio, we've already discussed how he's a terrible person. So let's go ahead and talk about this week's voice actor, shall we?
Yeah, so we have David Paymer as Dr. Mason Andrews, the Hoop Squad leader. Previously, we talked about him in War World. He's the Chancellor guy, and he's also in episode Torch Song of New Batman Adventures. And then along with him, we have Kath Soucie, who plays the robot Lagata or Elgata. Well, I will give a shout out to her because she's the woman who shouts "Thank you, Green Lantern" in The Greatest Story Never Told, the Booster Gold episode. So props for your performance in a different episode, ma'am. But
she plays.
Unfortunately, you're also in this one.
I would say in this episode, I understand she's playing a very archetypal character of, as we already mentioned, the annoying robot sidekick. Boy, is she annoying. Pulls that off really well in the performance here. They put some sort of like modulation effect on her voice also to make her sound more robotic. So it's hard to really hear her. I feel like her true voice in there. But yeah, what an annoying character.
Absolutely. And then we have we've seen Dr. Odium, our villain. We have David Ogden Steers, who we've talked about a few times before. He's probably maybe best known for his role on MASH in live action, but we know him as Celebar in Justice League, as well as he actually plays the Penguin in Mystery of the Batwoman, though we haven't reviewed that yet. So he's fine. He's a very generic evil scientist. He thinks the world should be nanites and instead of people. I don't know. It's fine. He's doing what's asked of him. There's nothing wrong with what he's doing, other than the lines he's asked to recite, which aren't his fault.
Yeah, he's perfectly serviceable. I did recognize his voice immediately. I was like, he definitely has played another character in the DCAU, and I could not place it. But then when I saw Solovar, I was like, yeah, definitely Solovar. Yep, not his fault, but terrible character.
Yes. And speaking of terrible judgment, we have Mr. Hawkins, of course, played by Kevin Michael Richardson. Letting his teenage son hang out with 4 adult men that he doesn't know.
4 adult athletes at that.
One of them being Carl Malone, terrible person. But Yeah, he's in it for a second. And then, yes, we have playing Point Man, aka Steve Nash. We have Chris Cox, who's pretty regularly used as either a background guy or in Justice League. He's playing Captain Atom. He's playing Aztec. He plays the Shining Knight. So a busy voice actor in the later seasons of JLU. We have Jen Sung Outerbridge, or just Jen Sung, I think as he's known sometime, playing Center Force, aka Yao Ming. And then we have actually it's Phil Lamar playing Tracy McGrady. So there's our three, and then yes, as mentioned, Karl Malone, terrible person, plays himself, aka the Pulverizer, and he's bad, by the way.
Not good.
And I think Dwayne McDuffie said, he did an admirable attempt to read all, because they give him, I guess, most of the dialogue because he's the only one voicing himself. But most of his dialogue is this psychobabble explaining like how the suits work or how the nanotech robots reprogram themselves at a molecular level or whatever. And it's just very clear that he's like reading off of a paper.
Mm-hmm.
And I know all of the actors are, but it sounds like he's reading, like you can tell. So he's not good at this on top of that. So, yeah. And then we have our two heroes, Jason Marsden as Gear, who again is completely sidelined throughout this episode for indiscernible reasons. And Phil Lamar, as mentioned, playing both Spin Drive, aka Tracy McGrady, and Static, aka Virgil. Our main guys are fine, as they always are. They're doing their best, but they're working with they're grasping at straws here, right? Like Phil Lamar has to be like, like Static's down because his electricity powers don't work on the magic robots that can they just decided to not let electricity affect him. And he's like, oh no, I can't do anything right. And I'm like, oh, poor Phil Lamar, you're too good for this. But unfortunately.
Yeah. It's an unfortunate thing. Like I would find it very unlikely that we would ever trash the performance of Phil Lamar because of how much we respect his performances, his skill set. Obviously, he's a legend in voice acting. He continues to get jobs in voice acting for his ability to do his job very well. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that we before this episode, and I doubt after this episode, we would crap on his performance. I think that unfortunately sometimes though our actors and actresses are only as good as the material which they're provided, and a lot of this is him responding to psychobabble from the Hoop Squad, him interacting with the Hoop Squad, or him just kind of going, oh wow, it's the Hoop Squad. We don't get a lot of ability for him to share or show a lot of emotion and range. And a lot of times I think that that's what sets Mr. Lamar apart in his skill, as it does with many of the great actors and actresses that we highlight here on a weekly basis. It's the range and the ability to evoke emotion and really communicate and give life to these 2D animated characters and make them feel very real. And when you hamstring your main character and you don't allow him to be able to kind of share a range of emotions, and it's more or less he's got to be somewhat worried when Gear is gone, and then this little like weird side story of him not knowing or feeling responsible for the train heist, and then him also being frustrated that his powers, or trying to figure out how to get his powers to work in this scenario or whatever. It's not a showcase for Mr. Lamar, and it doesn't showcase the strengths that we know that he has, and instead just kind of gives him some bland dialogue. And so not his fault that there's not a lot that's memorable about his performance, or for Mr. Marsden for that matter, but there's not a lot for them to focus on when you have just this albatross, it feels like, around their necks, dragging them to the bottom of the proverbial ocean.
Yeah, it's a Herculean task to say the least, and I don't blame our regular actors, any of them, but unfortunately, they're kind of sidelined. Hey, like a sport, like NBA, they're sidelined this week. So for those reasons, it is only as I'm only giving it as high as it is because of our main actors, because I can't bring myself to give it a 0.
Mm-hmm.
I'm giving voice acting this week a 1 out of 10.
Holy moly. I was a little bit kinder because I don't think that Mr. Ogden Steers was awful. He comes off as being evil. Kevin Michael Richardson, despite being, again, given a terrible storyline, still is able to communicate. I did think it's funny, even though it makes no logical sense for this guy who is like a great dad to be like, oh, sure, you can hang out with this person. Doesn't even visually confirm that this is actually Karl Malone. It's just a human on the other end of the line that says, hi, it's Karl Malone. I'm with your son. Are you cool if we hang out for a bit? And he's just like, yep. Absolutely infuriating. But I ended up not worth a disagreement alarm. I gave our voice actors a 3 out of 10. There is unfortunately just not a lot here. And the focus, as we mentioned, you have 4 guest stars and one of them is the actual voice. How does that happen? How do you visually represent 3 celebrities and not have them record in any random recording studio 5 lines?
Yeah, I mean, Yao Ming spoke English. Like, I don't, maybe he didn't speak it fluently enough to, like, I don't know how great his reading in English was, but like, it wasn't even, because for a minute I was like, well, maybe Yao Ming, like, they were worried that, like, translation would be hard or whatever, but it's like, no, he spoke English. I remember watching interviews with him. Like, he spoke pretty good English. So yeah, I don't know why any of these guys, and the rest of them are Americans. So like, I don't know why any of them, other than that, they all probably just got the call from their agents and said, nope, that sounds dumb, and didn't do it. But
not Karl Malone. He said, where do I go? I can't wait. Where do I go?
No.
Will there be any?
Keep it.
All right, Liam. Well, that will begin to. Well. Wait here just a little while. Well, by my count, that was 4 notifications there for negative bonus points. Can only mean one thing. We got some additional awards to provide to this wonderful episode. Why don't we? I have 2. I believe you have 2 as well. So why don't we switch off here? I'll allow you to go first. Give me your first negative bonus point you're awarding to this episode.
All right, -1 for the concept of the entire episode. This is basically because I couldn't give plot lower than a 0.
Yep.
But yeah, just what if NBA players were superheroes is not an interesting idea or a good idea. It's like I said, it just reeks of agents and entertainment executives and the word branding and synergy being used, and it's just blah. It's gross. I hate it. So -1 point for the concept. What is your first?
Well, before you said that, and before we kind of did some research live on the air here, it was also for terrible idea, just this concept.
Yeah.
But now I'm going to give a -1 for corporate synergy, because as I just realized, AOL Time Warner was a company that was formed, I believe, in 1998 or 1999, meaning Warner was a part of the TNT branding, which means that, Your Honor, the defense rests at this point. Actually, the prosecution rests at this point. This is 110% having to do with the fact that the NBA was switching networks, was all under this Warner umbrella, and they're trying to make people happy. That is my verdict. That is what I'm laying down here. And corporate synergy leaking into our comic book shows, let alone the DCAU, is a miscarriage of justice, Your Honor, and belongs nowhere in my DCAU. Not my DCAU. So, yes, one for corporate synergy leaking its way into Static Shock. What's your
Absolutely. Love that. And my second negative bonus point is for Karl Malone, because he's a bad person. So I don't like that he's in this. I don't like that he's represented in this, much less that he voiced himself. I was not a fan. I'm not a fan, and
Bold stance.
There's a lot of things that are a matter of court record about why this guy's not a great guy. So, he sucks. So -1 for him.
There you go. I'd be curious, and I'd rather not know right now. I'm not going to do the research, but I'm curious when those allegations came out and whether or not it was prior to him being given a platform to be on the show, or if it was afterwards. I'm praying it was afterwards. Nonetheless,
I know they came back to like a couple of years ago, I believe, when the All-Star game was in Utah. Is when it kind of really ramped up again, and I think it became like a national story again. But I don't know when the original revelations. I mean, it would have been a matter of public record because there were lawsuits and court cases surrounding it. But I don't know that your rank and file person would have known about this, because I just don't know how well it was reported outside of wherever the local market of where it happened was. But yeah, anyway, bad person, -1.
There you go. And my final negative bonus point, is for making Robert Hawkins an official member of the terrible DCAU dads. This is infuriating. Robert Hawkins is the like pinnacle of great DCAU dad.
He was S tier dad.
Yes, he absolutely is in the conversation. Listen, the bar is pretty low. Not gonna lie. But as far as great dads of the DCAU, it's like Pa Kent.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's it. I'm trying to think of another great dad of the DCAU.
I mean, Jim Gordon's a drunk and an oaf, but he's not terrible, I guess.
He was kind of interested in pimping out his daughter to Dick Grayson.
That's true.
In the last
well,
time.
Again, he was drunk, so you have to remember that.
It's true. The bar is set relatively low. But that being said, Robert Hawkins is he's S tier. He's a dad that you want to look to, and his biggest fault was like doing the dance moves of like his 1970s favorite superhero. Like that was his biggest fault that we saw. Now we have this forever in our minds that he was perfectly okay. Not only his son and his best friend disappear in a strange city, and he doesn't think to call them for hours. He finally calls them, and he finally picks up, and he's told that he's hanging out supposedly with an athlete, a grown adult athlete that was 38 at the time, probably. And you're just like, hanging out with Karl Malone? That's the coolest. Absolutely. I don't even need to show up to make sure that story is true. I'm good. I'll just stay here in the hotel. Bye. Like, that's what you turned Robert Hawkins into for this story. Absolutely insane. Make Robert Hawkins the one that gets kidnapped by the scientist for whatever reason. Like, that would have made him way more sense why he didn't care about where Virgil and
what if Dr. Imodium, or whatever the fuck his name is, what if Dr. Imodium, if he was like, he wanted to win the contest to go to the All-Star game,
sure,
and Robert won, so he like took revenge on him. That would be less that would have at least been like a really funny reason for a nanotech scientist to terrorize the NBA All-Stars. Would have been because he was jealous because he didn't win the charity giveaway for tickets to the All-Star game. That would have been funny, at least.
Unreal. So, double negative bonus points from both of us. That is a historic moment here in the DCAU reviews history. We told you this would be a legendary episode, and if you didn't believe us, now you know. All right, Liam, let's total up our scores. With my 2 negative bonus points coming in here, we end up with a final score of 8 out of 40. Single digits, baby.
And we had a couple, I was somehow more harsh than you this week, as with my 2 negative points, I have a final score 5 out of 40.
We have a new all-time bad episode jar leader at this point with a 5 out of this. Ladies and gentlemen, this is rarefied air. This is the pinnacle of crap when it comes to the DCAU.
It's not the Underdwellers jar. It's not the Unity jar. It's not the whatever that Zeta project was where Bucky's parents get turned into babies.
It's not the Superman's pal jar.
No, it's the Hoop Squad jar now.
Oh my goodness. There is no reason that this episode should exist, let alone unless you are looking for, like, if you want to do the Mystery Science 3000 thing and you record like a riff track about how terrible this episode is. You know what? We might do that one day just because of how terrible this is. But there is no reason to ever watch this episode. So if you come upon it and somebody mentions the Hoop Squad and you're like, what is the Hoop Squad? You just don't want to know because it's that bad. No need. Exactly. It needs to go. No reason. 2 thumbs down for rewatchability.
Absolutely.
All right, Liam. Well, that will begin to wrap us up for this week. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this legendary and now record-breaking episode of the DCAU review. If you'd like to give us your own feedback, maybe you find something about this episode endearing. Maybe, just maybe, you have love for Hoop Squad. If you do, show your homework. Tell us what's going on here. How could you possibly defend this episode? Tweet at us at DCAU Review on Twitter X.
That the Hoop Squad should have been in the Justice League?
Stop it. Stop it right now.
You let us know.
Where's the justice for the Hoop Squad in Justice League Unlimited? Why were they not on the Watchtower?
And I'm just saying, if you were like, what's worse, Hawk Girl betraying the League and almost blowing up the entire Earth, or Karl Malone being a member of the Justice League, it's Karl Malone by a wide margin.
Yes.
Give me Shira every day of the week.
Not even close. If you somehow, though, if you don't want to troll us and you actually have like ingrained beliefs that this is somewhat of a redeemable episode, please keep in mind people that worked on this show believe this to be absolute crap. So keep that in mind. But if you think that this episode is great, or maybe you want to pile on, tweet us at DCAU Review on Twitter X, slide into our DMs, or comment on our post on Instagram at DCAU Review. Of course, you can also, we are on a couple of other of those social media platforms, Threads and Blue Sky and Facebook. We are on those as well, so you could always find a way to contact us and give us your thoughts. You could also, if you're listening to us on Spotify, you can comment on this episode. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Participate in our goofy poll of the week about this episode. Let your voice be heard. While you're there, if you're listening on your favorite podcast app, perhaps Spotify, perhaps Apple Podcasts, if you don't mind, leave us a 5-star review. That helps us out a lot. If it allows you to leave a little blurb about what you like about the episode or the podcast, like you can on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please take the time to do so. And if we read your review on air, we will give you a little thank you gift if you live in the United States, just for stopping and giving your 2 cents. So if you do so on Apple Podcasts, that is. You can also, of course, follow us on our new YouTube channel. Again, we do not yet have a YouTube fancy YouTube link, but you can check out the show notes. Do us a favor, even if you don't listen to us on YouTube, go there now, subscribe to us. Helps us that way. Once we get to a certain amount of followers on our YouTube channel, we'll be able to get that fancy handle. We'll get some reels and some other things up on there that we do from time to time to provide some entertainment, those little clips that we put up there. So check that out. Please follow us there. And then, of course, you can also support the podcast. Check out the show notes. You can get a piece of merchandise at our shop, or, Liam, as we mentioned at the top of the program, you can become a monthly supporter at buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review. And as we talked about at the beginning of the episode, if you are our top tier supporter there, our annual supporter or our top tier monthly supporter, you get the perk of asking a question of us regarding the episode, and we will answer it here on the air. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we have yet another question this week from one of our supporters regarding the Hoop Squad.
That's right. Poor our buddy Zach once again dropped in a great question. Suffered along with us by checking out Hoop Squad with us. And, yes, absolutely. You're the real hero this week. Certainly not Karl Malone, terrible person. But anyway, yes, Zach made mention of the fact that nanites as a concept, one of our favorite things, nanotechnology. He had kind of had an idea that he hadn't really known about them until the Superman episode where the Mad Hatter mentions them. But apparently, the concept of nanites, the microscopic little robots that make up our big robot today, have been used in things like the X-Files and Star Trek. So Zach's question is, do you think the nanites should have been used more in episodes of JLU, and or Batman Beyond, since they're such a sci-fi show staple? Interesting question. I mean, I understand because it is, like you said, kind of a classic sci-fi thing to do. Nanotechnology, even the Marvel movies people almost make a joke out of that. Everybody has a nanotech suit now. So it is very much almost like ubiquitous now in sci-fi and superhero stuff. You could have, but I do think it becomes, because there's no rules to it, it becomes like a world-breaking thing. We talked about that last week with the speed belt thing. It's like, once you introduce too many of those elements, you're like, you have to keep inventing a way for the heroes to stop this thing that you've established can't be stopped by any like conventional means.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that's part of the problem, is that because they're basically magic, how do you have to keep coming up with interesting or unique ways to stop them. So I feel like maybe they were used enough. Like, again, they come back with the Mazo, there's the Dark Heart and all the Brainiac stuff in Justice League. So like, I feel like they used it. It's a good like bridge to connect some things. Like, hey, maybe this doctor guy was a Cadmus cast off or something, and you can connect that to the Dark Heart, to Justice League and all that if you want. But yeah, I don't really feel like we missed out not seeing more of them personally, but I do see where he's coming from in the sense that it's just like such a sci-fi staple and it kind of lends itself to this world. But yeah, I almost feel like it becomes a crutch because, again, it kind of just makes it magic basically, because the nanites can do anything.
Yeah, it's hard. It's the same thing. I mean, I think eventually you run into the problem. If you use nanites too much, you run into the same problem that you ultimately ran in with Amazo. And that is how as you mentioned, like, how do you defeat this character? What super magic do you have to come up with if you're creating this thing? And they even mention it, I feel like, in this episode, that the thing, yeah, that's the whole thing with Static's powers. Like, oh, they can adapt. And that was the thing with Amazo, right? It's like, oh, well, he can adapt and absorb other people's powers, and then suddenly he's God. Like, by the end of his run, he's God. And it's hard to create a opponent if you're grounding this in superhero reality. You have to have a hero god in order to be able to defeat that god. And then it's like, well, can that actually happen? Can a god kill a god? Like, if you've already set up this thing as being able to regenerate itself and constantly adapt and change, and it becomes like, to start, it sounds like an interesting concept of like, well, this thing that's constantly adapting, which causes your hero to constantly adapt themselves, right? So they have to be thinking, and it's not a stop all, it's not a solve all with one single plan. They have to constantly change. But like eventually the episode has to end. Eventually the comic has to end. Like, and you have to come up with it at the reason. You kind of write yourself into a corner at that point of like, how do we end this if we've basically said that this thing is capable of just constantly changing forever? So I think if there was talk about synergy, if there were some thread lines between here, like perhaps nanites were a apocalyptian technology or Kryptonian technology or whatever it was, like if we were able to run that thread and like each time they popped up there was an acknowledgement, and maybe there were different breeds of nanites, so that they couldn't, like, defeating one series of them, it wouldn't work the same way as defeating the other ones. But there was always a way to defeat them. Like that would be interesting. There could have been, pulling these universes together a little bit by using them, since we see them pop up in a couple of different stories. But yeah, I think the problem is with these, and I'm not as familiar as how they were used in some of those other series that Zach mentioned, but as far as what you do when you make these things pretty much all powerful, you kind of write yourself into a corner, and it makes it difficult and then harder to believe, as weird as that sounds, like that there's going to be a solution, or that whatever the solution is to defeating them doesn't feel cheap, or like, like it's eye-rollingly bad, as far as like, well, how does that the thing that defeats them? Like I'm not even sold on the fact on how they were defeated here, other than they like, there was a machine that was running them and we shut the machine down and that's how we stopped them. It's like, oh, okay, all right, sure, whatever. So yeah, I don't hate it. We talked about it before. It is that Deus Ex Machina thing that it can do whatever it needs to do in that period of time. And but I think if you run the risk of making it too silly and too unbelievable if you overuse it, and it's this thing, you kind of cheapen it. It doesn't seem like a powerful thing either if it can constantly be defeated, even though we're talking about it in the episode like it's this formidable opponent that we don't know how to solve. All right, Liam, well, that would begin to wrap us up for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone, and thanks for that question, Zach. If you'd like to ask your own question, join Zach and our other supporters, head over to buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review today and sign up to be one of our top tier supporters. Liam, we are bidding adieu to the sunny skies of Dakota now that we have wrapped up this legendary episode. Boy, what an episode to go out on, too. Nothing to wash that bad taste out of our mouth when it comes to Static, but we will revisit Static, I'm sure, once again sometime later in the year. But if you look at the calendar, Liam, we are winding down the month of March, and that means that April will soon be here. And what has become one of our annual and most fun traditions here at the DCAU Review. I believe this will be our 4th annual edition of our April Fool's episode, which will be coming up next week. And boy, from what I'm hearing, it's going to be a shell of a time.
That's right. You may want to order your favorite pizza and just kick back, relax, and watch what comes your way. Stay tuned to the socials at DCAU Review. We have a fun little rollout for what we'll be reviewing. We're not gonna say just yet, but suffice to say, get ready for a lean, mean, green fighting machine.
There we go. It should be fun. It should be interesting. Past years we've reviewed Iron Man. Spider-Man, Hulk, and what else did we do?
X-Men.
That's right, X-Men Evolution. So we are veering away. No Marvel this year, but staying in the superhero realm, and certainly a popular show from the early 2000s. Going to be a blast. Make sure you tune in to our very special edition of our April Fool's episode dropping next week. But until then, I'm Cal.
And I'm Liam.
And we'll talk to you on the next episode of the DCAU Review.
Cowabunga.